Hi, I'm retired NYPD Detective Vic Ferrari, and welcome to NYPD Through the Looking Glass podcast, where you get unique insight into the New York City Police Department. Before we get started, I encourage you to check out my Amazon author page, where you'll find my series of behind-the-scenes NYPD books. They're $10 paperback or $2.99 ebook download, including my latest NYPD Presumption and Dysfunction. Hope everyone's having a great week. Hope everyone's having a good week. Let's go to the true crime section of the New York Post, and then we'll get on with this week's story. A 36-year-old married NYPD police officer and 3 other people were shot and killed by a crazed gun Midtown skyscraper early Monday evening, sparking mayhem in Midtown before turning the gun on himself, police said. The 27-year-old maniac, identified as Las Vegas resident Shane Tamora, barged into the 44-story building, which houses Blackstone and NFL headquarters, armed with a rifle, and opened fire around 6:30 p.m. during the evening rush. New York City police officer Didoral Islam, 36 years old, was remembered as a dedicated family man who loved putting on the uniform after he was senselessly murdered. Tamora, who authorities say had documented mental health history, unleashed his rampage after setting foot in the lobby, first gunning down Officer Didoral Islam. Tamora, who claimed he suffered from CTE, he had scrawled frontline documentary on one of the pages of a suicide letter he left behind. Authorities believe that Tamora targeted NFL headquarters and got off on the wrong floor. This lunatic that goes into this skyscraper and starts shooting people up is blaming the NFL for his CTE. Here's the thing. This guy never played it down in the NFL. He played high school and maybe college football, so he never played for the NFL. And the only way to diagnose CTE is after they autopsy your brain. So I'm guessing they're saying this guy has a mental health history. So he was probably on psychotropic drugs, which no one seems to want to address that. So this guy wanted to shoot up NFL headquarters, and he got off on the wrong floor. And that's when he encountered Officer Islam, unfortunately. A vehicle with Nevada plates registered to Tamora was found at the scene. Cops searched his car and found a rifle case with rounds, a loaded revolver, extra ammunition, magazines, a backpack with medication prescribed to him. Police officer Didoral Islam, who worked in the 4-7 precinct in the Bronx, had 4 years on the job and was off duty at the time of the incident. And he was working what's called the paid detail in uniform. So I'll go into all of this. First off, this maniac. This was a well thought out plan, because they found his car with Nevada plates. So this guy drove across the country with this AR-15, ammunition, his meds, a suicide letter, the whole 9 yards. So he had time to think about this. You know, this just wasn't, he snapped. This was a thought-out plan. Got into the building, went to the wrong bank of elevators, got off on the wrong floor, and killed these Blackstone employees. Unfortunately, it was three other people died. Officer Islam was working, like I said, the paid uniform detail. So the NYPD started this a couple of years before I retired, and at first it started with Yankee games and Met games. So what the job would do is you're off duty, but the department authorizes you to wear your uniform to work a security gig. So at first it was just Yankee Stadium and Shea Stadium to work games. Then it kind of morphed into corporate America, somehow caught wind of this. And then I remember they would have cops in uniform off duty working in Home Depot to deter any kind of nonsense, shoplifting and things like that. And if you made an arrest, I don't know if you actually took the arrest or you would hand it off to the precinct cops that were working. And what made this a big deal is cops moonlight all the time and work second jobs, but the NYPD makes it very difficult for you to work a second job. So you have to fill out an off-duty employment form. Your commanding officer has to look at it. He has to sign off on it. And then it goes to one police plaza, and then it gets looked at and scrutinized. It takes a while. It can take actually months before they approve you to work off duty someplace. They're not going to approve you to work off duty in a bar or a restaurant. To my knowledge, they didn't want you driving a cab. I know guys used to do that in the 70s. They don't want you anything involved with money. They kind of just want you to be like a cigar store Indian. They really don't want you getting involved in things. So I guess they figured working the baseball games. But again, corporate America kind of got their hooks into this. And this cop was working security in uniform at this skyscraper. It's a sad story. This cop was married, had a couple of kids. He had another one on the way. They're waking him up in the Bronx, I think tomorrow. It's it's just a bad situation. Federal immigration agents collared a Jamaican national who managed to get himself hired as a cop in Maine. Despite being in the country illegally, Immigration and Customs Enforcement announced Monday. Jamaican migrant, or illegal alien, John Luke Evans, 3 names, who was employed as a reserve police officer with the Old Orchard Beach Police Department, illegally attempted to buy a gun. He was arrested in Bidford on Friday, according to ICE. ICE said Evans was also issued a gun by the police department. The fact that the department would hire an illegal alien and unlawfully issue him a firearm while on duty would be comical if it were not so tragic, ICE Enforcement and Removal Operations Field Chief said. We have a police department that was knowingly breaking the very law they were charged with enforcing in order to employ an illegal alien into Miami. While Evans entered the U.S. legally by flying into Miami National Airport on September 24, 2023, he overstayed his visa by nearly 2 years. He was supposed to leave October 1st, 2023, and never did. So here's a guy who's got balls, and it looks like the police department knew he was here illegally and hired him anyway and gave him a gun. And when he probably went to buy a second gun, the ATF looked into it. It flagged and like, wait a minute, this guy's not even supposed to be in the country. And now instead of being a cop in Maine, he's going to be on an airplane in a couple of days going back to Jamaica. So if you don't think illegal aliens are voting in this country, if they're becoming cops, if you don't think they're voting in this country illegally, you're wrong. This story really pisses me the hell off, and there's so much to unpack here. 5 people have been charged over a vicious beatdown on a Cincinnati street after footage of the wild brawl went viral. The suspects' names were not released. Of course they weren't. And the Cincinnati police chief, Teresa Thedage, declined to specify the charges, but cautioned more arrests are expected. We have 5 we have charged and anticipate more, Thedage told reporters on Monday, 2 days after the 3 a.m. Monday incident that she referred to as a fight. I saw this video. It's anything but a fight. However, according to online videos, the fight consisted of a mob stomping on the head of a man cowering on a downtown street, while a woman was cold-cocked and knocked out with blood pouring from her mouth as she tried to intervene. Cincinnati Police Chief Thedage, however, tried to downplay the brawl, calling the weekend outside of the one incident an amazing success for the city, while explaining that a baseball game and music festival happening in Cincinnati that night both went off without a hitch. All right, so first of all, I don't like to get political. I try to stay away from race and political, but here's the thing. This was a race crime. There's just no two ways about it. You had a group, and I watched multiple videos of this. You had a group of at least 10 adults, at least 10 adult black men and women beating the daylights out of a white guy who looked to be in his 60s, okay? The guy was not fighting back. He was kind of running for his life. When they finally get this guy down to the ground, they're not satisfied, and they're stomping on this guy's head. Men, women, you name it. And, I mean, just you can die that way. They can crush your skull. And this guy is just getting kicked around on the ground. He's not a threat. This white woman, about 35 years old, tries to stop them. You know, she's not fighting. She's trying to get and stop them. Someone just cold cocks her and knocks her unconscious, right? So the legacy media refuses to cover it because it doesn't fit their narrative. And the Cincinnati Police Department wasn't taking it seriously. They probably just took a report until the videos went viral. Now, the thing is, the videos went viral because the people in the crowd that were part of this were dumb enough to film it and post it on TikTok and YouTube and God knows where else, and then people started sharing this thing, and then the Cincinnati Police Department had to do something about it. So then the Dutch boy comes out and starts blaming the people who posted the videos online as irresponsible. If you haven't seen this train wreck DEI police chief's press conference, I beg you, find it on YouTube and watch. It's like a Saturday Night Live spoof. And the best part of the press conference is, as she's trying to gaslight the American people, her photo is right over her shoulder. And she's blaming everyone but the animals that attacked these people. The incident was taken out of context. We were spread thin that night. There's two sides to every story, yada, yada, yada. But you got to get this quote, which is, it just is incredible. I think the responsibility with social media is it just shows one side of the equation, quite frequently without context. Without factual content, then people run with that and it grows legs and it becomes something bigger that we have to try to manage as part of the investigation. No, you were ignoring it. It forced you to conduct an investigation. If this would, and I hate to say this, but it's the truth. If this would have happened to two black people who were beaten by a mob of white thugs, the FBI would have been down there. The Cincinnati Police Department would have put every resource into it. I mean, look at what happened with that hoax with Bubba Wallace and Jesse Smollett or whatever the hell his name is, those hoaxes, the amount of resources that went into that to prove it, that it was a fraud. There's a guy I follow on Twitter, I guess X. Guy's name is Lucian Wolf. He's actually a pretty interesting guy. He put the whole debacle into perspective, and it's actually kind of funny. A white couple gets ambushed by a mob in broad daylight. The whole thing's caught on video, and the police chief's priority, scolding people for sharing it, not arresting the attackers, not comforting the victims, and blaming you for watching the wrong version. Then the Quaker Oats guy goes on to say that despite this wilding incident in downtown Cincinnati area is completely safe, and she would encourage her own family to hang out down there. She sounds like the mayor in Jaws, like Amityville, the beaches are going to stay open. But what comes around goes around. This police chief, I call her the Dutch boy or the Quaker Oats guy, she makes the New Orleans police chief, Granny Clampett, and her spokesperson, the Riddler, she makes them look competent, but now she's being sued by people in her department about her hiring practices and promotion practices. So hopefully they'll get her out of there. But she's definitely a DEI hire. This woman has no business leading a police department. She should be a school crossing guard. That's what she looks like. This is a kind of an easier story. In Oak Haven, Oregon, a squirrel named Goldie has been stealing small gold items, including earrings, necklaces, and even a gold tooth from homes since July 10th. The squirrel's antics have captivated locals with the discarded gold tooth found near a bird feeder. Who knew that squirrels like gold? I never knew that. So today's story is going to revolve around the NYPD's Aviation Unit. I don't know much about the NYPD's Aviation Unit, so if there's anyone out there from the Aviation Unit that wants to come on and speak about it, I'd love to hear from you. But this was in the New York Post, and it's sad, and it goes to show you with DEI and Eric Adams running New York City into the ground. But here we go. The head of the NYPD's Aviation Unit was booted from the elite squad this week after trying to block the feds from probing his dangerous mishaps, the New York Post has learned. Aviation's commanding officer, Winston Faison, was an incompetent boob who had numerous breaches in safety as he attempted to make himself the unit's head helicopter instructor, whistleblowers revealed. When FAA inspectors made a surprise visit to the base on July 16th because of internal complaints to his agency, Faison flipped his lid, police sources said. Don't give them anything, he barked at his cops, who an insider said, who let them on the base? Faison allegedly told cops working security at Floyd Bennett Field not to let the FAA in through the guard booth. Faison also threatened to lock up the records, the insider said. Here are a few reported incidents of this guy, Winston Faison. He nearly crashed at the Brooklyn home base while flying the unit's pricey Bell 407 training helicopter with a student next to him during a hard landing during the last week in June. He and the student hit the ground hard, sources say. Neither were hurt. Later, Faison took the same helicopter for a solo jaunt up the Hudson River on April 25th, flying in the wrong seat against manufacturer's rules. The helicopter's tail rotor leaked oil, and Faison didn't catch it because he doesn't do pre-flight checks as required by the FAA, sources said. The aircraft was covered in oil, the second source said. Faison allegedly has new employees without the oversight of the NYPD, sources said. He's working around department rules to get his people in, a third source said. He oversped his rotor and could have torched a $500,000 helicopter. Faison caused structural damage to a $40,000 tail rotor while practicing a quick-stop maneuver over rocks on July 4th. If that goes, you're going to spin around like a top, the first source said. Luckily, the tail rotor's damage occurred during the final flight on July 4th holiday season, so Faison couldn't fly again. He didn't understand why he couldn't keep flying, the first source said. The unit bought 2 new blades for a total of $80,000 to be safe, sources said. Faison, who insiders say is friends with Mayor Eric Adams, was put in charge of the unit in 2023 and made over $234,000 in 2024, records show. Faison, who joined the NYPD in 2000 and became the unit's first black commander to fanfare in 2023, began training for his instructor's license in April and obtained it May 28. He got the coveted helicopter instructor's license in record time on the city's dime, despite showing up late to the $80,000 course in Texas that concerned trainers in the Lone Star State. Called the unit's base at Floyd Bennett Field, Brooklyn, sources said. It used to take a decade to become a helicopter instructor in the unit, the third source said. This guy did it in 18 months. A police source familiar with Faison's transfer said he's internal investigation. The FAA could suspend or revoke Faison's pilot license. Faison hung up on a reporter who called him Friday. The NYPD did not comment. So this appears to be another case of New York City Mayor Eric Adams appointing another one of his bonehead friends to a sensitive position within the New York City Police Department. This went on all the time, but not to this level. So I worked in the auto crime division. That at the time was a very prestigious unit. I'm sure it still is. And you had most of the people there had a car background, made a lot of stolen car arrests, knew a lot about VIN numbers, knew how to run cases. But then you had the contracts that came in. We used to call them parachuting in. This guy's wife drives the mayor around. This guy's aunt is an assemblywoman. And we would get incompetent people that would come to the auto crime division and they couldn't pull their weight. Now, that sucks, but it's not going to really, I mean, it could get someone killed if you were doing a search warrant or something dangerous, but you're talking about putting someone who sounds like a moron in charge of a fleet of helicopters, and he's taking all these shortcuts and he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. And like I said, the NYPD's Aviation unit, I mean, you rarely, if ever, heard anything bad coming out of there. First off, it's a smaller unit. Those guys, most of them have military experience. They were pilots in the military, or if they weren't, they took aviation seriously. This guy just thought it would be like a good idea to fly a helicopter. To give you an example of like how this goes on in the NYPD with people getting positions that they shouldn't. There was a chief in the NYPD, and her husband was a lieutenant, and she wanted her husband to work in the auto crime division. So she thought she was just going to stick him in the auto crime division. Well, the chief of OCCB, the Organized Crime Control Bureau, had something to say about that. So her husband went for his auto crime interview, and apparently he didn't do very well. So he got denied. And this chief, she called up the chief of OCCB, and she said, "What are you doing? You know, I want my husband to work there." And he goes, "Well, he failed the interview." And she goes, "My husband's a good guy." And supposedly the chief of OCCB told this female chief, "We don't want good guys. We want guys that know what they're doing." Well, this stuck in her craw. And shortly after, you know, she got smacked and told no, we were working, it was a Yankee playoff game. And she was running it, and she made a point of pointing out the auto crime division. We got scrutinized more than everyone else, and they put us at the furthest point. So usually you work a Yankee game, you kind of want to be around the stadium. You'd like to be in the stadium to watch the game, or you like to be around the perimeter that you can sneak in and watch the game and use the bathroom. She made it a point of sticking us up up the Major Deacon Expressway, making sure no one broke into people's cars like on Woody Crest Avenue. And she spread us out all over the place and made a point of coming around and scratching our books to see if she could catch any of us off post. So these people take this stuff very seriously. But just to give you a little background on the NYPD's Aviation Unit, the unit was founded in 1918. God only knows what they had back then. I don't even know if they had helicopters back then. They were probably using planes. As of February 2021, the NYPD's Aviation Unit has 76 members. They average 5 years or more. That's good. You don't want kids flying it. Upon selection, they undergo training in helicopter flight operations, specialized missions like maritime search and rescue, counterterrorism. The unit conducts flight training utilizing both a helicopter simulator and a live built instruction in its Bell 407. The maintenance of the unit's aircraft is performed in-house. I did know that. And its mechanics also double as crew chiefs. According to Grok, which is the AI of X or Twitter, the NYPD's Aviation Unit fleet consists of 8 helicopters. This includes 3 Bell 412 helicopters, 4 Bell 429 helicopters, and 1 Bell 407 helicopter used for training. The 2 stories I've got about aviation was when we were doing that case where the vehicles were getting shipped to China, we knew there was a warehouse that they were going to be shipping the cars out of. They wanted us to get an idea of the neighborhood. So my lieutenant said to me, he goes, go out to Floyd Bennett Field, call up aviation, tell them you want to fly over this neighborhood with a camera and take a whole bunch of photos. And I said, I'm not getting into a helicopter. I don't even like to get in a plane. And he goes, well, I'm ordering you. I says, I'm not. Now, at the time, I worked with Bok Choy. Bok Choy was my 6'5", 300-pound Chinese partner. And he said, I says, well, I'm going to have Bok Choy do it. He goes, I would prefer you take the photos. I go, I'm not doing it. So we make an appointment. We go out to Floyd Bennett Field and we get out, and you could tell the helicopter pilot, because I'm only like 170 pounds, 175 pounds. Then he's like, all right, you going up? And I said, no, he's going up. And they had to make, with fuel, and I know they had to make some adjustments because of this guy's size. But yeah, there was no way I was going up in a helicopter. And just to show you how the NYPD treated a sensitive unit like this, we had an arrest that actually screwed one of the guys in the aviation unit. I felt bad for the guy because he didn't do anything wrong, but it was the early 90s, and the guys that worked in the Bronx in the early 90s will remember this. There was a crew of Albanian burglars, and very good at their craft, and they were hitting shopping centers, banks, the post office, believe it or not. They hit on Riverdale Avenue. These guys were professional safe crackers, and they were very good at what they did. And what they would do is they would set the alarm off at a place a couple of times to time our response on the midnights. Then what they would do is they'd rock you to sleep, and they would come in through, they'd get up on the roof, and then they'd cut a hole in the roof. They'd get in, and then they, with burning rods, get into the safe. These guys actually, not in my precinct, I think, so Fordham Road in the Bronx is separated by, it's the 4-6s on one side, the 5-2s on the other. I think it's the 5-2 side. There was a bank, Lumi, I think it was called. These guys spent a weekend, like it was like Memorial Day or 4th of July weekend, so it was a long weekend. These guys spent a weekend in that bank, cleared out the safe, cleared out safety deposit boxes, had broken into every safety deposit boxes. And the burning rods, from what I remember, set off the fire alarm like 3 times over the weekend. The fire department kept coming. Everything was fine. They're just lucky that they didn't open up that bank. Anyway, so we're getting killed with this. These burglaries, our precinct, a couple of places on Broadway had gotten hit, if I remember this correctly. I mean, this is 30-something years ago. So we were aware of it, and we did 6 to 2, 6 at night till 2 in the morning, driving around the north end of the precinct up by Johnson Avenue, which Johnson Avenue was nice at the time. I don't know if it still is now. A lot of stores and shops, and there's a couple of banks, supermarkets. And it was the winter. It was cold. It was like February or something. It was about 1:30 in the morning, and we're driving around the precinct. And I remember we passed a custom van, and it was running because I remember seeing, the exhaust coming out of the condensation, and it had a temporary plate. And I remember as we drove past it, I looked and I didn't see anybody in it. Like it was just kind of running. I didn't see someone sitting behind the wheel. And I go, well, that's odd. So I said something. I think my partner was driving, and I said something to him, and he saw it too. And we make a U-turn, and we come back, and now the van is gone. Like, where'd it go? So we just start circling, and we see the van. Now so Johnson Avenue is kind of up in the hills of Riverdale. And I think we pulled the guy over. We pulled him over somewhere, maybe by Henry Hudson Parkway or something. Anyway, we pulled him over. And it was an Albanian guy and a Puerto Rican guy, and they had no answers. Like the van was like untraceable. They didn't really have the paperwork for it. They didn't have a registration for it. It wasn't stolen, but they had no registration. It was just like they took a van, slapped a plate in it, and parked it up there. Guy had a suspended driver's license. I forget exactly why we locked these guys up initially. It was either for the license or we heard a police scanner. There was something, right? So we lock these guys up. We bring them into the station house, and then we start going through the van. And inside the van, we find gloves. We find ski masks. We find crowbars. I think we found an acetylene tank. We found a police scanner. We found schematics. I mean, I don't think they were going to hit whatever place we thought they were going to hit that night. I really think that was just them. Maybe they were going to set off the alarm, or they were definitely conducting surveillance. So at the time, Major Case, there was a team from Major Case that turned out of the 5-0 precinct, and we knew them. And I had the guys, the detective's beeper number, which goes to show you how long ago this was. And I beeped him. The guy actually called me back at 2:00 in the morning. I says, we have something I think you might be interested in. And he came down. He's like, oh man, he knew the Albanian guy, knew him. He goes, yeah, we've been looking at him. Did not know the Puerto Rican guy. So the detectives from Major Case now are interviewing these guys, and the Albanian guy immediately clammed up. He didn't want to talk. And the Spanish guy started talking. I think he thought he was going to talk his way out of it. And while he was talking to the detectives, in passing, he mentioned that, yeah, well, my brother's on the job. And, where does your brother work? And he says, oh, he works in aviation. Interesting. So the Major Case detective started making some phone calls, and from what I found out later on, because this was a major case as far as with these guys going around hitting banks and stuff, they're screwing around with big business, and the FBI got involved, and this cop that worked in aviation, the Spanish guy's brother, they placed him on modified assignment. And I felt bad because I was like, Jesus, we thought we had this great collar, it was leading to something else that Major Case was going to take from us, and the FBI was going to look into it. And now, as a result of this poor guy working out in Brooklyn, he probably didn't even keep in touch with his brother. But this guy dropped his name, and, let me give him a call. He was really touting up that his brother was on the job. Major Case looked into it. They made a phone call. And from what I was told, this guy from aviation was placed on modified assignment. I'm hoping he got cleared. I really don't know what happened with it. But the point I'm trying to get across is, like, sensitive units like that, ESU or auto crime or aviation, they don't screw around. So, like, even if you have like a family member that's a dirtbag and starts dropping your name, it can lead to problems for that individual. I'm going to try to get a second episode out this week. I've been lucky enough, if you guys watch Netflix, there's a documentary that just dropped a week or two ago called Amy Bradley is Missing. It's about that poor young woman that went missing off a cruise ship. I was watching it, and I got in touch with this lady, Jamie Barnett. She's a part of this organization called International Cruise Ship International. They're trying to keep the cruise ships on their toes so things like this doesn't happen. I'm sure she's going to have a lot of interesting insight and stories that we can go into. Hopefully I'll have that out on Friday, if not next week. But as always, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in, especially my listeners in Omaha, Nebraska, Carmel, Indiana, Yorktown Heights, New York, Orloville, California, Millbrook, New York, and of course, Piscataway, New Jersey. If you work in law enforcement or have an interesting criminal background, please drop me a note on Twitter or Instagram at VicFerrari50. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe button. And if you enjoy the content, just go to my Amazon author page and type in my name, Vic Ferrari like the car, where you can preview all my NYPD books for free, including my latest NYPD Presumption and Dysfunction. Thanks again, everyone, and I'll talk to you guys soon.